Good morning. How are you, folks? Hope you're doing well. Got an early morning stream today with, I'm here with Dormacy. He's going to be co-casting this one live with me. And yeah, briefly, we're just going to go over these lists real fast as we wait for the players to join, and we'll get things going. Yeah, Dormacy, I mean, this Lev list is definitely the heavier control version of the Krennic. So, is there anything that's coming out in here that really looks interesting to you?
Yeah, absolutely. These two lists are, I would say, very different. You're getting a mirror match this morning. You're seeing two ECLs on the board, two Krennics going to come out around the same time, but um, Lev is definitely focused a little bit more on the control game plan with Krennic. You have a much like larger top end with a double Avenger in the main deck versus none in Thork's start. Honestly, actually, throughout, I'm seeing Thork doesn't run Avenger in the sideboard either. So huge difference in the top end of the two. Um, Vigilance, we've got a three of for Lev, willing to pay the six here for the effects of that, which are really important in that long game for the sake of mill and sustain through the health gain. And I think I'm very stuck on the regional governor three of in Lev's deck. I think that's great. We've seen that card shut down enormous plays in past seasons, even out of aspect. So for two, I think it's a really interesting include, and I think a really strong one.
Absolutely, yeah. Regional governor, especially in a control mirror like this. I mean, both players pretty much know what each other has. So, being able to call out a card like an overwhelming barrage or a devastator or relentless, even can definitely shut down Thork. Even in the early game, you can call out a super laser tech and then 50-50 shot that you shut down his entire ramp. So, definitely a powerful card. And then, like you were saying, the vigilance bringing in there. You can mill people, you can heal your own base. So really, just depending on where you're at in the situation, vigilance is a fantastic answer. And yeah, let's move over to Thork's list here. So like you're saying, a little bit more of a different game plan, less of the top end stuff and more of the mid range. Is there any card in there that really is interesting to you?
I think on this list, we're talking about having to turn the corner a little early, just because if you take this game late, you are going to be kind of losing out card for card to a heavier control build. So for me, the Traitorous I think is the most interesting. It's definitely a choice that Thork has made to shore up the early game, probably more so against aggro. But in this case, it's going to be kind of important to use that to be able to turn the corner early, see if they can push some extra damage in those mid turns, 4, 5, 6, and and knock the base bar down before some of those big cards come online. So I think the Traitorous is definitely what dictates the difference in pace for Thork's deck. Um, but I mean, what else do we have in here? There's a lot of solid early game cards. Nothing feels too out of the usual in those unit choices. So for me, it's the Traitorous, the Cargo Juggernaut. Not so important in this match, but definitely something that Thork has picked to make this a little stronger in the early game.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, the players are ready. Yeah, the whole list there is definitely going to be interesting. It looks like it was built specifically to target aggro with the Consortium Star Vipers and yeah, the Juggernauts to heal up your base. Definitely important stuff. So it will be interesting to see how that plays into this match. I certainly expect some of those cards to be sideboarded out, but we'll definitely see as the players develop their game plans here. But yeah, they're ready to go. Thork's going to start with the initiative in this first game, and yeah, we're underway.
Right off the cuff, we're seeing that Traitorous being drawn on the side of Thork, and a Del Miko in the hand of Lev, which I think will also kind of change that early game. Adding one cost to all of the removal options for Thork is definitely meaningful in a game where uh, sometimes you're trying to go one for one with the spells.
Absolutely, yeah. Power of the Dark Side costing 4 is important. That's an extra turn that Thorpe can't remove anything from the board. Overwhelming Barrage at 6 is also a big cost. So I
Yeah, that's
definitely expect
huge.
that. Yeah.
Massive part of your swing turn, early on if you're trying to clean the board up on your opponent's side, that six instead of five throws off your curve quite a bit.
Right, and we did see Thork miss the turn one play. He didn't have a two drop in his mulliganed hand, so he's just now putting down that Viper Probe and looking at his opponent's hand. Um, yeah, so he's playing a little bit off curve here.
Yeah, Death Trooper coming up soon, and some strong units in the like type of Darth Vader here, reinforcement walker. But a lot of these options, are going to be on both sides of the match.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. Let's see. So we had the Scout Bike Pursuer there go into the Viper Probe. So that Scout Bike is now hitting for 5. I definitely expect that to be removed here by the Viper Probe. Just a good trade option. That Viper Probe can also hit base for 4. So if Thork is going for more of a mid range play, he might go for base damage over killing the opponent's unit. But yeah, it's we'll have to see.
Yeah, those units are going to start trading really quickly alongside Krennic's power. Scout Bike's also one that we didn't see a lot of includes in the deck list for TTI this season, but it's a card that for a long time was kind of essential for the Krennic game plan. I think some people have chose to cut it to get something with a little more value.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a great card. It has the grit, so it works well with Krennic. We're gonna see a Viper Probe come out here for Lev.
So both players now kind of know what their opponent is playing with in hand. Uh, Death Trooper coming down previously to clean that Scout Bike up, and the boards are going a little bit more even now.
Absolutely, and I think a great choice for Thork there, getting rid of the Del Miko. That'll allow him to play Overwhelming Barrage next turn and have a board advantage.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to let Delmico sit for too long. In this case, it is only kind of slowing down the overwhelming barrage, and we'll see what the call is here. Maybe Lev has scouted that out with the governor.
He's got it. He called out Barrage.
Everybody knows the turn. I think so much prep has gone into Krennic for this season. 5 decks out of the 16 in our top cut, and so not only do you have the open deck list, but also people know the plays. They know what's going to happen on 5. You know what you're looking for in that later game. So um, yeah, heads up play to keep overwhelming barrage off of the field.
Yeah, and showing the power of that regional governor already. Yeah, it's a great card at any time in the game. You can call out early game ramp, you can call out mid game removal, and you can call out late game power plays like Darth Vader or Reinforcement Walker. So yeah, heads up play there by Lev. Knowing your opponent's list is very important to winning in this league. But the Death Trooper will trade it off.
Oh yeah. The +1 from Krennic is coming into play, keeping Death Trooper a little stronger than they would be in another, um, heroes deck, and that is going to make it a little bit easier to get back online with this spell. But even then, you're looking at being able to utilize that on a 2/7. It's not a lot of damage represented for your 5 resource. So gonna drop the cell block guard instead, kind of maintain a little bit of pressure on the board, and maybe hope for a ping to bring that into a space where it's doing a little bit more off of the OB.
Yeah, so Krennic deploys first for Lev here. That gives him definitely an advantage. I expect to see a Steadfast Battalion come down here and remove that cell block guard. Since his opponent's tapped out, he can't deploy his Krennic this round if you put down the Steadfast.
Yeah, it seems really dangerous. And going right into Steadfast means that Lev is going to have a great advantage early on. There's nothing quite like that in the hand of Thork right now, sitting on 2 Darth Vaders, which will come into play a little bit further down the line. But for now, this is kind of a massive tempo loss, and it does put Thork in a position where it's really unsafe to bring the leader out.
He's thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah, I gotta put something on board, trying to even up the board presence just a little bit, down 7 life, and uh, just sitting with 1 in the air. It feels like a dangerous spot to be in.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I was talking about on a previous stream with a Krennic mirror. But the person who deploys Krennic first is going to be in a much better position, as it's much harder to then deploy your own leader when you're at this disadvantage. So we will see the overwhelming barrage to kill Steadfast and the Viper Probe. So that should certainly help here.
Yeah, I think that's a wise choice. You're looking at 6 resources on board. Next turn, Vader's going to come out. The curve shores up just a little bit, um, and so to just try to keep things a little bit more stable in the turn before, I think is the right play.
And after
Okay.
the swings, Lev's going to call out Darth Vader.
Calling every shot right now. Maybe
Yeah.
they can see each other's hands all the way. Well, I guess yeah. The Viper probe is really important in that, right? Like the governor plays off the back of Viper probe droid really well, and you're calling these power turns. Everyone knows what you want to play on 5, what you want to play on 7. I think it sets up regional governor to have a lot of value in this match.
Absolutely, yeah. And now, with Lev having initiative, he can deploy his Vader, and he won't be able to kill Krennic, potentially. We'll have to see what he gets from his draw off the deployment, but he might be able to do something here.
Yeah, just one off, but Death Trooper will help do that remaining damage if they go
Yep,
with
that's the
that. I
one.
think that's got to be the play.
Yeah, you gotta just remove that Krennic later. Too important to not get rid of in one fell swoop.
Yeah, and no reason not to. I mean, we're sitting, looking at maybe one super laser blast to worry about to even things up here. But I think that's odds you can bet against a little bit. And with a hand with reinforcement walker, you can definitely, regain that card advantage if something catastrophic were to happen. So playing for board here and certainly winning. I think Lev has been kind of in control of this whole first round.
Absolutely, and I think his deck was definitely more prepared for a mirror match, so he has a little bit of advantage in this first round. We'll see how players shake it up in the sideboard, but I definitely think you're right. He's just been in control, and having 2 dead Vaders in hand because of that regional governor is crazy value. So I think we're going to see
Yeah,
ECL Juggernaut to take that out.
it's so brutal, and I mean this will definitely help knock the governor off the board. Shielded 4/6 is going to be really hard to punch through in one go. Um, but even then, you're playing a little bit from behind. There are great ways with this deck to kind of swing the tempo in your favor. But we'll see. There's always a chance to draw into something that shores up that board advantage a little bit. But it's a great spot for Lev to be in so far.
Absolutely, yeah. So he's gonna put the shield on after taking the 2 damage. That's a heads up play. Definitely help keep that Juggernaut on the board. Both players are only running one overwhelming barrage, or sorry, one what's it called? Super laser blast. So uh,
Yeah, I
first one to
think
get
we have one extra in the sideboard for Lev. Well, I'm not sure if they'll choose to bring that in, but one in the main deck for either player. So it's something that I think Thorrk said in describing their list that they play it so that their opponent has to respect it. It's always possible that it's there, but it's not something that you want to have 2 of.
yeah, it's so expensive, especially against like an aggro deck. It's just no good. Um, but in this matchup, it's definitely a powerful card.
Yeah. It's I mean something where you can really punish your opponent for being ahead, which is kind of a unique position to be in a game like this.
I do apologize, viewers. It was a little bit zoomed out there, so sorry about that.
I think the diehards know who's on the field from even 100 feet downrange at this point. You can see the Death Trooper, and I recognize them everywhere.
All right.
I guess there are a few cards. The Cargo Juggernaut you don't see so often. It's very strong for shoring up life leads in the aggro matchups. Healing 4 and putting a big shielded body on the field is really enormous if your opponent hasn't yet turned the corner. Um, but that's a card you don't see as often. I think we saw a little bit more of it when people were experimenting in anti-aggro when Sabine was like the only kind of archetype you were playing against.
Right. And yeah, so we see Vigilance in hand for Lev here. It's his action, and honestly, he can't get rid of the Cargo Juggernaut. He can get rid of the Cell Block, and he can get rid of the Vader. It has to be 3 HP or less. So unfortunately, just a little bit out of range of that Juggernaut. But I do expect to see that card played. Pretty powerful to get that removed.
Yeah, we're trading off some units on the board, and maybe considering the play. I think if I don't think that Lev saw the second Darth Vader with the Viper probe droid, but there is reason to keep that on the board over another unit if you expect that they have kind of the legendary rule. Um, you can make them kind of waste a little bit of value by replaying it if that's their only like big play of the turn. But even then, Vigilance not really changing the board state too much. And so, yeah, we're going to see the Reinforcement Walker, which I think is right. Trades well into everything that is on the field right now. And you kind of start that card advantage engine, which is really huge in a control matchup.
Absolutely right, and I think that was a good call to take the Vader off the board. It'll be interesting here. We got a Devastator in hand for Thorrk. So
Yeah,
a
that
lot
card
of
is an absolute
potential.
closer.
Absolutely. The problem with having a reinforcement walker is, of course, the power of the dark side, which Thork happens to have two of in hand.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be huge.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
good tempo swing there for him.
Yeah, I mean, you're always happy to see a play like that where you're spending 3 to knock 8 off the board. It's like you said, massive tempo play, and honestly, Thork's hand is set up for a really good couple of plays going in the next few turns. There's some very big units on the board, which we're creeping closer to on resources. And again, Power of the Dark Side. We see
Oh
another
my
Reinforcement
god.
Walker come down. I'll show you what I showed you before here. Three resources, and we're back to a really strong board state on the side of Thork. Um, and nothing really in hand just yet to outright deal with something. There's great control tools, but we're looking at some massive units coming down.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious on why he didn't play that takedown. Yeah, having a super laser tech in this late in the game is not really necessary, but that takedown is going to be important to remove the Juggernaut, or really any of the other plays that Thork has the potential of using. Um,
Yeah,
Lev
yeah,
not going for a
takedown would have been really
resource.
helpful, and like super laser's not going to do anything until they can stick a unit, and super laser technician is just really not going to push the damage the same way that something like Vader would. So they're definitely on the back foot now. Very quickly, all of a sudden, looking at 16 damage on the base, and 2 units on board that they have to be concerned about.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that super laser tech play. The takedown was, in my book, the better play. You can then power the dark side to remove something. Um, but we're going to see the vigilance now. Probably a kill and then a heal. That makes sense.
Yeah, I like that idea. You're not really needing to put a shield on your 2-1 here. It's not going to trade into anything, and nothing that you're worried about in the near future either. Um, but vigilance helps kind of set up the board so that you can narrow it down to 1 unit and make better use of that power of the dark side. Okay,
Absolutely.
Vader keeping the pressure on here. This can trade into Super Laser Blast, Technician rather, and then put another minion on the field, making that power of the dark side just a little worse than it could be.
Yeah, he has access to cards. I mean, from Death Trooper to Star Viper to Cell Block. We're going to see the Death Trooper to uh, not even
Oh,
take damage
great!
on
Yeah,
Vader.
yeah. Skipping the hit on Vader. I mean, Vader would have been out of takedown range even after the ambush, but this keeps the trades a little less even. I think being at 5 means you lose to your opponent's Vader. So,
He would have been in
uh,
takedown range because he would have taken 2 damage.
oh, you're right. You're right. And that's, yeah, it's 5. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So yeah, avoiding a lot of counterplay here from Lev. Choosing resources, looking towards those top end of the deck options. I think, you've seen 2 Power of the Dark Side. I think Avenger is safer than it could have been. So maybe hoping to find that, help lock this board down. And Darth Vader going to come out here and help that along as well. I think you can essentially use your Death Trooper to take care of theirs, which is a really helpful play. Ambush could go into Cargo Juggernaut, and that'll help change this board state a lot. Darth
I'm
Vader just
curious
is
what
such a
he's
strong
gonna
card.
do. I mean, if he does the Vader attack and then the Death Trooper to finish off Vader, that could be a play. Like you're
Yep.
saying, he could kill off both the Death Trooper and the Cargo Juggernaut,
Yeah,
and that's
all
what
in
he's
on
gonna
Vader
do.
is definitely
Yeah,
an option, but narrowing the board means that, if they draw Power of the Dark Side of their own, that gets a little bit more. This is going to make Overwhelming Barrage quite a bit stronger, though.
yeah, I do expect to see that played right now. Um, I mean, maybe we could get out a cell block guard or something like that beforehand to protect against the Power of the Dark Side. I think that's kind of what Thork is looking at.
Yeah,
Um,
that's really smart.
yeah, but then, yeah, having the option to still play an overwhelming barrage is going to be a massive advantage.
Yep, and we're going to go right into that cell block guard. No resources on the side of Lev. This is looking a lot safer.
Absolutely, and Vader being able to swing for base damage puts Lev in a tight spot.
Yeah, a lot of pressure, and all units on the side of Thork were, losing some of those swing cards, but with the boat in hand, I mean, any big unit is going to get gut checked very quickly, and Lev not really drawing anything with a lot of gas to it right now.
No, those Consortium Star Vipers are pretty weak, especially with no ambush potential or anything like that. He might want to get one of them on the board just so he can overwhelming barrage. But as soon as he does play that, like you mentioned, that boat just comes down and clears it off, and then puts a big old Sentinel 10-10 in space. And so I do think Thork has this one in the bag. I don't see an answer for Lev.
Yeah, I think you're praying for that super laser blast into the next turn. You're claiming initiative and hoping you can have sort of a massive turnaround, because these removal spells are all really, really strong into aggro. Even though we kind of expected Thork to have the quicker list that performs into the fast matchups, Lev is drawing all the tools used to shore that matchup up with Krennic. And that means in this later game, we're looking at just trying to stay alive with Vigilance, spending 6 to mill to just add a little bit to the life total. And Star Viper, like you said, it's not too strong without that ambush, without like smaller target to hit in space. You're dealing 3 damage and healing just a little bit. Uh, Compared to everything in Thork's hand right now, I think it's definitely a slower play.
Yeah, and here I'm not sure what Thork can drop besides Devastator that makes a ton of sense. Gideon Hask and a Death Trooper and playing Inferno is also a play. So he can get rid of he can play out 3 units. I don't know how worried he is about an overwhelming or a super laser blast, but maybe the Devastator is the correct call. He's just gonna go with initiative.
Interesting. So that does guarantee a swing with Vader. Um, yeah, maybe worried about those big control tools, scouting a board wipe. But looking at the deck lists, only one in each player's hand. We are getting late enough into the game where a lot of the decks have been, drawn. So that is looking more and more likely that it exists in the hand. But playing around it, I mean, I think we could have been representing lethal on board. It's hard to tell what the right play was there.
Oh man, and that's massive for Thork. He has a potential for the Traitors here, and that can take the Consortium Star Viper to
Oh
win the
yeah,
game. We do have an overwhelming barrage that can come down, but now it can't kill Vader. It has to kill the Consortium Star Viper, which guarantees Thork can take the initiative and win the game.
Yeah, that is a massive initiative play.
Yeah,
There's not anything else Lev can do to stay alive, but even then, you're out of resources, and you're kind of just picking your poison. Yeah, go next.
go
Wow,
next.
that traitorous came into play, but a lot later than I expected.
Yeah, you expect that more of a turn 4 play, but here it
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
turn
yeah. You want to
11.
play it on curve, and it's a huge tempo swing when you can. Especially this deck doesn't have a way to you know bounce just the traitorous, so you kind of have to kill that unit and spend a lot to do so. But um, here, just yeah, kind of putting Lev in an awkward spot. Really good play from Thorrk.
Absolutely, yeah. You got to be able to see those types of plays even in the later part of the game. Maybe it's less cool factor than putting down a devastator on the board, but no less
Right, right.
impactful.
So yeah, what do we have in the sideboard here?
Let's take a look real quick. So I think Lev is probably going to play more into his hard control idea. He'd probably bring in the Dooku, the Super Laser Blast, I would imagine, and then maybe a Relentless or Devastator.
Yeah,
I'm
Dooku
not
plays really well in this matchup. Um, going unit for unit, the shield is always really helpful, and being able to kind of have like a baked-in takedown on the way in means that you get a lot of value for that card while representing some pressure on the board.
absolutely, yeah, and it's really good with Krennic. Like you mentioned, just being able to do a 2 for 1, and you can put the shield on after coming in. Or something. Um,
Yeah,
let's see, and then we've got the he could do a make an opening for maybe some early game removal. We saw how impactful those Death Troopers were, dealing a lot of damage to base. 4 damage to base is nothing to sneeze at. But I don't know how much of that he wants to bring in place of units, because of course, at the end of the day, units are better. For Thork,
yeah, you're
though,
you're definitely sacrificing value for making opening, but it can keep you a little more alive early on. I think the question is whether they want to use these like anti-aggro, so like stabilizing cards, or if they want to go all in on boats and make it so those later turns are a little more impactful. Because what we saw there was pretty good control over the game up through the mid game, and then once those big turns came out, there was nothing in the tank. There was no way to kind of cause trouble and lock the board down from Lev, who is running things like Avenger and Devastator to do exactly that. So I think more representation on that side of the deck might be helpful for the game plan.
yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Um, I expect Thork to take out some of these earlier game cards that are kind of the anti-aggro. Maybe some of those Consortium Star Vipers, the System Patrol Crafts, and some of the cell blocks maybe in place
Yeah,
for, like a Vanquish or more of his top end Relentlesses. So that's kind of what I expect to see. But
yeah, that
really,
makes sense to me.
yeah, not a ton of changes for either of these players.
It's funny we're both so low on the system patrol craft, but that thing did drop down and do a lot of work last round. So who knows? I think Thork is on some plays at least that are making this work out in his favor better than I expected.
Yeah, absolutely. See, so he's got a full hand. Both of these players have a very interesting hand.
Yeah,
Lev looking at all removal, and Thork looking at more of a late game set of cards.
yeah, this is an interesting hand, especially from Lev. We've seen the strength of power of the dark side. It's so low to the ground, 3 resources, but if you don't spend it early, you're putting yourself in a position where your opponent gets to make those choices a little bit more for themselves. And here, like, you don't really want to spend it on something like Inferno 4. It honestly gets your opponent even more value through the scrying process, but it keeps the board clear. So it's something you have to do because if you don't have another way to remove that, they can just choose it later down the line anyway.
Yeah, at some point it's got to die. um,
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
but the
One way or
scrying
another.
is powerful. So yeah, being able to get one card out of there, nice for him.
And we are already seeing some of these sideboard choices coming into play. You've got your Imperial Tutor in hand now. That again is a play towards more value. Emperor's Legion. Um, and getting a little bit more on the side of minions here, but again, just more control tools than Thork has, and Thork's hand looks great for controlling the board rather than the resource game.
Yeah, Emperor's Legion is an interesting one. It's kind of a anti board wipe card,
Mm,
so it definitely could be really good, especially to refill your hand, get that card advantage we were talking about last game. Um, Not sure what we'll see here. How good of a card that will be in this matchup.
yeah, Power of the Dark Side looking a lot better very quickly. With Thork having ramp, that means they're getting a little closer to those strong mid game plays on the side of like Steadfast Battalion, Darth Vader, and having efficient removal to deal with that will be really helpful for Lev.
Yeah, here Thork has no weenie unit, so he's probably going to just drop Krennic down by himself, which will be a
Yep.
instant target for that removal. Um, that's kind of what I expect to see this round. Although it does depend on, I guess he does have initiative, so that's probably the play. Uh,
Yeah, he's thinking. You feel like you're kind of playing into a trap with 5 resources up. Lev is hovering over the Vanquish. There's definitely some things in hand that Lev can use to keep this stable while they're getting closer to their big plays. And um,
and
I
Thork will
like Thork's
pass.
hesitation. Yeah, nice, interesting.
Lev
We want
takes
to see.
initiative, and that's the
I
end of the
love that.
round.
Yeah, Lev happy to take the time walk there. Uh, Again, just playing towards those later cards and getting a little bit more in the way of low cost units, but just wanting to threaten with Vanquish with Power of the Dark Side until those big plays can come out up live. Because again, that card gets stronger the bigger your opponent's play is.
Absolutely. So now Lev can drop his Krennic first, since they are on a even playing field in terms of the resources.
Mm-hmm.
Orc still doesn't
Trying
have
to,
a weenie unit to protect him, but
yeah, I think they're trying to bait something out here, and oh, they're gonna find the traitorous. Nice. Yeah, if you want to remove something, it's gonna be your own unit, I guess.
yeah,
That's actually really strong here because the with the ramp as well. Both players are in the space where the short trooper gets +2/+0. So that is a 4/3 that does kind of require an answer.
yeah, tough plays here from Lev. I don't think that was the correct call to put down the season short trooper first. Of course, using the board knowledge that we have, the hand knowledge, um, it was a really great play for Thork. So taking advantage of that fully, but putting down your Krennic first is always a solid play. Uh, Maybe he was also worried about a Power of the Dark Side seeing his own in hand.
Yeah, I think this does put the tempo on Thork's side. Setting up Krennic means that Steadfast can come live as soon as the next turn starts. Got initiative, and that's going to make the opposing battalion like a little bit weaker. I think you're going to see to some extent like a trade on either side, but it does just kind of put the Thork in the driver's seat in terms of the board right now. Still
100%.
very close.
And there's no upgrade removal in Lev's deck, I don't believe. So, yeah, that season short trooper is probably just going to be ending up in the graveyard here. But like you mentioned, it hits for 4, so it's a very impactful card. We're going to see the ECL
There we go.
Steadfast to remove Krennic.
Yeah, that protects Thork's Krennic too, because without the buff, incoming Steadfast from Lev is just going to do 5 damage. So I think that's a really strong play, just shutting down the Krennic unit early and taking a little bit of that value away from Lev.
He still can kill Krennic this turn. He'll just have to trade both Super Laser Tech and Steadfast into it,
Yep.
which is what he kind of wants to do anyway. But
Yeah, looks happy to do it. And honestly, at this point, you can also swing in with Darth Vader if you want to maintain a little bit of that like board presence. You don't need to save the ECL for anything in particular at this point, but uh, Vader is an efficient play here. It spends your resources, and we are going to see that come down.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, really great play. He's going to be able to. Well, he's got three Death Troopers, a Del Miko, a Scout Bike, and a Viper to choose from. So pretty much all of his options in the deck. Uh, so pick up the litter. I think the Death Trooper is the play, just to get some damage on the board, and a maybe the Del is also good. Uh,
Delmigo's interesting. I think you're you're kind of changing up what Thork's options are in terms of events, but only for the moment. I mean, a lot of Thork's board trades into Delmico right now. Uh, it's not necessarily that there would be a better time for it. The Death Trooper doesn't outright kill anything, and so you're kind of representing a 3-1 for a 3-1. But I guess that could be handy to get a few more points from Steadfast Battalion on the Overwhelm. Delmico, I guess would shore up a Power of the Dark Side play on the side of Thork right now. It could make the next turn like a little bit more awkward, and it's gonna stay alive for at least the moment. So we'll see if anything that Thork draws it gets kind of unwieldy here. No, all units. I think Thork happy to see Delmico on the field.
yeah, of all the plays that could have possibly happened, I don't think there's a huge error, or sorry, uh, problem that Thork has with dealing with that. He can trade Steadfast into it, but he can also drop a Vader and keep his Steadfast alive to hit the base. So he's definitely got some plays, no doubt about that. And the Emperor's Legion, I was kind of confused about that. I thought he was setting up a play with that using the Steadfast Battalion last round.
Right.
But I'm not sure if that card has a real place in the Krennic deck. It's just kind of an interesting idea because it is like an anti-board wipe type of card. But going into like a mirror match like this, it feels like an interesting strategy to be aiming for. I do like Lev's hand though. He's got a lot of powerful units still tucked away, as well as some efficient removal spells. So
Yeah, something like Reinforcement Walker can also represent a lot of sustain. I mean, you are worried about some of these removal counterplays at some point, but uh, being able to like refill your hand, and right now there's not really a life lead to worry about, but three health per attack per turn is definitely impactful in getting to those later turn plays. Right now, I think Reinforcement Walker can't really get like too heavily punished, and uh, well, I guess do we have enough for Devastator on board?
no,
Last
he's only got
looking.
9. Uh, oh, that's a great play from Lev. So Delmico trading off with the Steadfast,
Oh
healing
yeah,
1, and now this
huge.
sets him up for a massive Power of the Dark Side play. To like, I guess he's got to think here. He can do Steadfast and Power, or he can do a Reinforcement Walker. It just depends on what Thork is able to pull out. Um,
Yeah, we'll see what the secondary card is. I mean, Reinforcement Walker is going to stay alive this turn, and yeah, now we're gonna see everything that Liv has in the hand. So, uh, I like that play. I think Power Dark Side goes right to the Viper Probe, obviously.
well, yeah, I think we just had to do Vanquish then to get rid of that Vader.
Yep, and that's not a bad play either. I could see a world where with just 2 damage on the board, you could be saving the Vanquish for something a little bit bigger, um, and hope to kind of trade in with a Reinforcement Walker. But it's nice that we're getting to the point where that removal gets a little more efficient. You're playing it directly into some of these large cards. You have to be worried about something like Relentless, which we are going to see in the hand of Thork now. Uh, that's going to shut down the event game a little bit. And honestly, the biggest use of Emperor's Legion right now is to maybe proc that effect and then go into a laser blast afterwards.
Absolutely, yeah. We're gonna see Devastator, which will kill off
Oof.
the Walker.
Yeah,
But
that's
this is
brutal.
Super Laser Blast. This is perfect time for it.
Yep, absolutely.
There we go.
Really happy to see that in the hand. Lev gonna put things back to even, and this is definitely becoming anyone's game.
And then Emperor's Legion, like you called, getting that Walker back in hand. Uh,
That's massive.
that's massive. So he still has 2 of them in hand, and he's drawn into a Vader and a Avenger here. So he's getting every single one of his targets that he wants for the late game. And Thorrk is not shy on the cards either. He's got a power, he's got a relentless, and a Vader also in hand. Definitely all the answers that you could possibly want for a control mirror.
Yeah, thinking about, targeting control in this league, a lot of players were expecting a little bit more hard control and looking for things to navigate that. And I think the Emperor's Legion is absolutely one of those cards. Like you play that into a super laser blast and you can really get a huge value swing, depending on what your board state was. And even just pulling the reinforcement walker back up, that's a massive play for Lev. And it does allow you to make much better use of things like your Avenger, things that you're afraid to play into resources because you don't want them to get removed.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That is the problem with Lev's hand. He doesn't have any smaller cards, so he is vulnerable to the really efficient power of the dark side. Um, Thork to act here, so he's gonna go with his own small guy, the seasoned short trooper. I'm not sure what we see here from Lev. He can just go with like Vanquish, um, but he's gonna go with the Vader instead,
Yeah, Vader puts two bodies on the board. It
right?
makes Power of the Dark Side much weaker. And then, there's a chance that you pull something like Rogue Droid or yeah, Del Miko, great. These things are both going to shut down some of those swing plays from the Krennic deck. Uh, and just trying to set up a position where you have things on board that are disrupting your opponent's development.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lev's deck is really built to do a lot of that. I mean, Delmico slows down the events game. You have regional governor, which I think you can you play that off of this, or it's not a villain card, right? So
Yeah, you
y-
can't do it, regional governor, unfortunately.
but even playing that down for two just to sort of have some disruption, uh, and using things like Viper Pro Droid to get a sense of when or where you're calling those.
So we do see Relentless come down, which is great to stop the Vanquish, but I think Avenger will just drop here for 9
Yeah,
and remove
yeah.
that.
Avenger plays so well into this.
Yeah, and that's a tough call from Thork. He really couldn't play it any differently, really. He might have gone with the Vader trade, but maybe he definitely wanted that space presence, especially to
Yeah, he's
shut
got
down
Vanquish in
opponents.
hand, but it costs one extra with Delmico. And this is where you start to see Lev's game plan really come together. These disruptive cards change your curve just a little bit. And if you're playing two cards a turn, it gets to be a little bit more. Um, Nothing in Thork's hand feels like a clean response. So,
Yeah, I was about to say he paid 4 for the takedown, but it should cost 5.
yep,
So
thinking, do I have what I need to play the rest of my turn? Thork's wondering,
I think
all
he's
that takes that one resource.
yeah, he's got to go with a like a power here to force Lev to get rid of the Del Miko, I guess. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I mean, you don't really want to remove anything else on your board. I guess there's a universe where you chuck the Vader just because you are going to keep that disruption up, and maybe the two damage is worth less than the one resource. But no matter the case, I mean, you're spending one for this first bit of removal anyway. I, Thorpe may be wondering if Vader's the thing that has to come down to clean up that ground board, but then you're kind of guaranteeing yourself a swing for the Avenger, which is a huge value loss.
Yeah, so Thork is going to force the takedown onto Vader. Okay.
Interesting. Okay,
Well, it
so
does get
Delmico
rid of some
gunning.
damage.
Yep. Yeah, definitely making it a little safer and willing to spend the Vanquish on the Avenger.
Yeah, I think that's a heads up play from Thork. Del Miko, while it's great to force that extra resource to be played for both of those cards, it's not as impactful as getting 8 damage to your base or 6 damage with the Vader. So yeah, kind of just playing on life support here.
Yep. Yeah, it's I mean, one Vader in hand. The nature of this game is that you draw a lot more, you draw 2 cards per turn, and so once you're up on these higher resource turns, you can make the choice to, hold everything if you need more like options in hand. But just looking at the hands from our two players right now, Lev has so much like value between the 2 reinforcement walkers, the Avenger being redrawn here, which I think is the scariest card. Looking at like this board state, and another Vader as well. There's just so much to play with, and it means that Lev is going to get more damage in with these 3/3s. Uh, while those new board states are kind of evening up.
Yeah, 100%. And Thork will get to put another unit on the board here. Um, ECL for Lev is still unspent. So,
Oh yeah,
I mean, late game, if there is a card that comes out, he can definitely still use that ambush. I think he just has the tools, like you were saying. He's got 2 really efficient removal spells with the Vanquishes. He drew into a Avenger and a Vader, and he's been sitting on those walkers, which, as you mentioned, can heal you and give you more card advantage. Just a lot of a lot of good stuff coming down.
yeah, and we're seeing you know Consortium get in for 3 again, just bits and pieces, but certainly meaningful. And Thorpe does have really strong tempo plays with his removal right now. The Power of the Dark Side always going to go the way of Star Viper for the moment, but Vanquish is there for any of these big units that Thorpe could be worried about. I think you save that for something that's really gonna damage your board. Reinforcement Walker feels like a good target, but really you want it for something like Avenger or Devastator, something that's really, really threatening.
Let's see. And then, yeah, so he's going to pull a Viper Probe, which will allow him to look at Thork's hand.
Yeah.
Um, does the Vader kill off the opponent Vader, or does it go for the Seasoned Shore Trooper? I'm not 100% certain. If he goes for the Shore Trooper, he can force Thork to uh, kill off his Vader, as Thork is definitely more controlling at this point. I guess killing off the Vader is also good.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like either play is kind of going to result in a similar, game state, right? Like you're taking 4 damage versus 5, you're leaving something with a couple health on the board.
And
I
actually, he
don't
has
think
enough
anything
for
was.
he has enough for
Oh
Vanquish.
yeah,
So
nice.
I'm not sure why
So
he
yeah,
didn't then just go for the Seasoned Shore Trooper to take
yeah,
less
that's
damage.
true.
But
Could have saved a ping on Vader there.
yeah,
One of those plays that sometimes happens kind of after the fact, and you think, well, actually, I want to clean the whole board up, and uh, looking at that 1 damage, that could certainly come in handy down the line. I think at 6 rather than 5, you're still in Death Trooper range, but um, every little bit counts when you're talking about overwhelming barrage. When you're
well,
talking
he
about,
only would have been at 4 damage, so it would have been out of
oh
Death
yeah,
Trooper range.
yeah, so Death Trooper would have been nothing.
But I mean, he's still in takedown, or I mean, Vanquish can remove
Yeah,
anybody. So
yeah, exactly. Okay, trading on board.
yeah, Consortium gets to stay alive, which is very important for this game state. Keeps Power of the Dark Side very weak, and yeah, Thork is not running into the options he wants to see. I don't think an overwhelming barrage here is the play he wanted. Steadfast comes down though. That could certainly shake the board.
Yep, yeah, OB is in hand, and I think that was drawn after the Viper Pro Droid came down, so it could be something that Lev doesn't have perfect information on.
Oh, and I
Yeah,
like
just looking
this.
for a play.
Lev has a fantastic play. Death Trooper can ECL into Steadfast Battalion and kill
Oh
it with
yeah,
the on play ability. So
I love that. I've never seen that before, but that makes perfect sense. You can ping yourself for 2 and then go in for 4. That's a really interesting usage of ECL.
that's what we're gonna see.
That's so cool. Yeah, great play from Lev. UCL, you always expect the steadfast. You always expect something like Consortium Star Viper when you have initiative to ease up some of that early game damage you take. But that's, I mean, representing 6 damage on the swing for 3 is really huge.
Yeah, so we did see Emperor's Legion there to get the Steadfast and Inferno 4 back into hand, and then Thork is going to replay Inferno 4 after Lev takes the initiative, letting him cycle through more of those cards to find the ones that he wants to see, and he draws
Oh, those are
into a
two good ones.
Devastator. Yeah,
Yeah.
Devastator and
not
Relentless.
not sad about that.
No, he'll be excited about that for sure. Uh, Lev, though, has the initiative, so he can certainly swing for 6 into the base, putting Thork up to 21 damage. That's only 4 away, so Star Viper could definitely win the game off of that. Um,
Yeah.
I think we see a Devastator play for Thork to kill off the Viper Probe potentially and keep the Consortium Star Viper from swinging with the Sentinel. Uh, uh, Barrage is another good one, so he could do that. Really tough
Yeah,
call.
and I mean, you have to spend those resources to play Devastator just to make this a little safer. You're right that the life total on the side of Thork is getting a little dangerous. Nice to use the Star Viper early, maybe expecting that something's gonna come down in space, and we're gonna prevent 5 damage, 6 damage on the board here. Would have been lethal. But Viper Probe Droid's still gonna get in, and Lev has really strong tools to navigate this board state. They get to kind of see uh, how they want to play out the rest of this turn, and I mean, Thork is going to take initiative here. There's no play for one, but
Yeah.
what are they going to do to keep things, going into a wide board on the ground?
Gideon Hask has some good board impact. Being able to get experience on the Viper Probe, so Thork can't trade off that Inferno 4 into the Consortium Star Viper. Just keeping
Mhm.
another threat on the board is nice, and a Vanquish to take out the
Oh yeah,
Devastator.
Vanquish is going to be huge.
Yeah,
OB was really scary there, so I think yeah, cleaning that up rather than trying to ignore it and go for face. Just playing slow. This deck has the capacity to go into the long game. They can be slow and grindy, and just getting those threats off the board before they can be meaningful. Like Overwhelming Barrage is such a strong card, but you need something to stick to make the most use of it. And like playing it on Inferno 4, very different than playing it on one of your late drops.
absolutely. Yeah, and so Thork will scoop there. Lev taking this one down, and we're into a final top 3 here. Sorry, a best of 3, the third round.
Yeah, really strong showing. I think Lev's game plan came together a little bit more clearly there than in the first game. We kind of saw that like 1-for-1 in the mid game, and then the boats just locking things down late and being able to just keep Thork on the back foot, keep forcing inefficient plays, and just really strong units on the side of Lev for 9 and 10.
Yeah, 100%. Lev definitely wants the game to go on for as long as possible. He's just got so many tools when it comes to that late game strategy. Between the vigilances, between the reinforcement walkers, and we just saw his hand at the end there, absolutely stacked with options. And he was able to see and calculate what Thork was playing. And then as soon as Thork was out of resources, drop just massive board changes between his units on the board and his removal spells. He was able to take care of Thork very cleanly through that game. So, yeah, interesting coming into this third round. Thork will have the initiative, and we'll see. He mulliganed into a hand with no turn one play, so that unfortunately puts him on the back foot again. Interesting to see how he plays. Oh, so Lev is just going to take the initiative after Thork passes.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a really strong reactive hand from Thork, but no real scary plays on the board, and that's gonna set Lev up for this pretty free resupply. No sacrifice in tempo. Uh, able to maintain the rest of the hand here, and Thork is going to have a lot of options when it comes to the turns where any of these things come online, but it's a very top heavy hand.
Yeah, absolutely. I like this play from Lev, doing that to get the resupply out with Thork having no ground unit or unit at all. Puts him at a real disadvantage. I think he's just going to keep the initiative. I think that's what I
Yeah, this is
saw.
an interesting couple of turns because again, Thork doesn't really have anything to play unless Lev chooses to extend and Power of the Dark Side. Hitting something like a Gideon feels really good, and so Lev might be inclined just not to do it. Like, yeah, you can bring out Krennic. You could throw Power of the Dark Side here and get some value out of it. At least you're spending your resources.
And we'll see a Gideon Hask come down. Thork will take the initiative. And he
Yeah,
draws
almost kind
into
of
a power. Oh, man.
yeah, that's going to be really good for showing this up. But you're spending that removal so early, and we know from seeing the hands that there's nothing to really like worry about right now in the hand of Lev. But this is something that maybe you wish you had going into those turns where Relentless comes down, where Avenger comes down, um, and Thork just spending it early to maintain board presence a little bit. Okay, Del Miko, nice.
And then Emperor's Legion here. And he can get the Gideon Hask back to hand. So
Yep.
that's pretty nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that card it's good not to be too precious with it. Um, you'd be inclined to spend it after something like a super laser, but getting any value off of it in your hand is always nice to spend your remaining resources and maintain some sort of pressure. So
Right.
um,
And that being the
yeah,
most important thing for tempo is being able to spend those resources when you have them.
and we are going into the Vader turn here for Lev, who is up one resource thanks to that early resupply.
And we see how effective that can be to have a ramp. I mean, ramp is just really good, especially with this control matchup where you've got all these high cost cards. Um, Even just getting one or two ramp cards out puts you at a significant advantage the later in the game you go.
Yeah, you have these swing turns in Star Wars Unlimited that are really impactful, and allowing yourself to get there just a touch earlier. There's like certain turns where that becomes a huge factor. When you're talking about the mirror match, it's like doubly so, right? Because you know exactly where your opponent's swing turn is. Like being able to get ahead of them there and establish that board presence can definitely make or break games where the deck lists are more similar, where the pace is more identical.
Yeah, uh, that's exactly correct. And Lev and Thork, I know, have been playing the crap out of these decks. They have, I mean, play this mirror match probably hundreds of times now. The
Hmm.
dedication to understanding and knowing so exactly what their opponent could play is, yeah, it's unfathomable, really. I mean, they put a lot of effort into really understanding these matchups, and they're both really good players. I think both of them are Store Showdown winners over in Europe. So, yeah, just yeah, great players in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've definitely seen Thork in previous TTIs, and uh, always bringing something interesting to the table, always experimenting. And I think this deck is no different. Experimenting with a little bit early of a curve, favoring some more game into aggro. But the magic of Krennic is that if you're a skilled pilot, you can use these control tools later in the game really effectively. Um, so I think it's a good call from Thork. It's just a matter of whether or not it plays into the metagame that has been kind of like delivered here. And right now, Lev just maintaining this board presence with a few scary units and putting Thork in a rough spot. I mean, the hand again is a lot of very strong cards, but expensive ones. OB just a little too expensive on this turn to shore up this board difference, and we're gonna see one of many things come down in the next turn. I think Lev just has so many options with the Vader, with reinforcement walker, super laser blast is always a good insurance policy here. But it's getting to a point where Thork's hand is a little bit more relevant than it was, and we're seeing the traitorous. We're seeing things that are a little bit lower to the ground and have like defined value here. Being able to take the Delmico would definitely be a big board swing.
Yeah, and he drops the Vader, so that's going to take all of his resources. Um,
Yeah.
he can't kill the Gideon Hask because of that experience. So
Hmm.
it'd be interesting to see what he grabs. He doesn't find a uh, do you call it, Death Trooper here. That's probably what he was searching for, but Super Laser Tech, not a bad grab at all. I think he'll be forced to settle by killing the Del Miko.
Yep, I think you just want to take something off of the board here, and trading into Gideon only feels like it's right if you can get the full clear. I think Death Trooper would have been a really good hit there. So I can imagine we didn't see one in the top 10.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, Super Laser, you represent something on the board. It means that Power of the Dark Side gets a little bit weaker, and a little bit of ramp goes a long way. You're going into turns where you don't just want to play one card. You want to have that resource for something like Power of the Dark Side, and then also play a boat. So catching up on resources is not a bad consolation prize for Thorrk.
Yeah, and Lev not finding a Death Trooper either. I
Oh
think
yeah,
he'd probably settle for that Viper Probe just to see what kind of tools Thork is playing with. It was interesting that he chose to go with the Vader here over a Super Laser Blast. He could have hit the base for 6 with Gideon, and then gone with that Super Laser Blast a turn later or an action later.
yep, definitely could have cleared the board and left Vader in hand. This does keep him in a decent position. I think if you're knocking your opponent's Vader off of the board, Viper Pro Droid gives you a lot of hand information, which is really helpful, planning out your next 2 turns. And Super Laser Blast is an insurance policy, really strong as long as you can navigate that Relentless, which is kind of the boogeyman in the hand for Thork right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thork is it's going to be going up to he's going to be going up to 9 next turn. So a relentless play is definitely in the cards. And I think kind of just trading off the Vader or killing the Vader.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, trying to keep the board clear. I mean, there's no Super Laser Blast from Thork, so you can't really let that get out of control. And something like Traitorous is going to find value into the Viper. Um, there's definitely a lot of ways you can play this hand from Thork. I think Traders has been pretty effective so far. Um, Happy to see that even in the late game, and it's one of those cards where you're spending 5, but the late turns and you have 11, 12 resources. You can do that alongside something else. So
Yeah, and here, so we don't see any damage on the base after the Krennic restore, and Thork drawing into a Super Laser Blast himself. He wouldn't be mad to drop that right now, I don't think. But he also could do a Super Laser Tech to kill off the Viper Probe, and then a Devastator to clear off that Gideon Hask. Would allow the Gideon to swing into the base for 9. So I'm not sure if that's the play that he'll go for. Um, yeah, it's kind of a tough call. That Gideon
yeah,
still has 5 HP.
Devastator is so strong, just to knock out another one of these like late game plays. And there's a world where Thork wants to stick something like Relentless, which can't really be easily removed. I mean, now we're seeing the Vanquish out of hand of Lev, so you can't sort of proc the event dispel with this low cost event anymore. But Relentless could set up an overwhelming barrage going into the next turn. But no, we're gonna see Super Laser just bring us back to parity here. It's uh, not the highest value Super Laser, but definitely going to make the board state feel a little less scary. And I think Thork believes in his hand as far as future plays.
That should have only costed Thork 8. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
no. Let's see. I mean, it doesn't. He doesn't have anything to play
yeah, he
anyway.
doesn't
So
have anything
yeah.
additional, but it is he's looking at 9 there. Maybe thought Delmico was still floating.
Yeah. Once you play that out, your opponent has to worry about it every
Stuck
time.
there forever.
Yeah.
And we are seeing the Avenger for Lev, which you are so happy to draw after a Laser Blast. Um, that's an incredible card for the rest of this matchup. I think Thork has no great way to deal with it right now. And I don't know what Lev's read is on the hand, but I think Lev's seen at least the first few cards here, the Steadfast, the Reinforcement Walker. It must be looking pretty safe to play that Avenger.
Yeah, he has seen. I think that entire 5 card that Thork is still sitting on. I think you've seen it all with that Viper Probe. It was
Hmm.
only last round, yeah, it was last round that he played that. So he knows every single card that Thork has right now. Thork had to get rid of one of the cards, a cell block card that he drew this round, and then he also drew into a Viper Probe. Um, like I said, not a very high impact, but he'll be able to see Lev's hand and play around that Devastator, play around that Avenger and the Super Laser Blasts. So
Yeah, this is such a good play trading into that, just forcing the turn back onto the side of Thork, because any one of these big units that could be played, even Steadfast, being able to knock that down with your turn play is pretty massive. And we're gonna see reinforcement
Thork,
drawing into a Viper Probe Droid.
yeah, he wanted to get rid of it so bad, but he has no HP to
Yeah,
heal.
yeah, he was so ready to pitch it. It's just like, put me at -3 base damage.
Yeah, I wish you could, man. That would be so
Yeah.
great. And then
All
there's
right,
the Avenger.
yep. And this is such a strong board state. I mean, again, you're looking at huge plays from Lev. These things are going to start swinging for 6, 8, 9 damage, and uh, Lev just in such a good position to go kind of play for play uh, with Thork, and then just get damage off of their other unit, right? Like Devastator looks so good here, but be able to answer with a Devastator of their own, Lev is still very much in the driver's seat.
Yeah, 100%. Devastator looks to be one of the best plays here. You can get rid of the Reinforcement Walker and force the Avenger to trade into you by using its on attack ability. But even then, I think you might just have to drop Devastator and kill Avenger since it's such an impactful card. And then, like you
Yeah,
said, Devastator is going to come down from Lev to kill the other Devastator. So
yeah. There's not too much else you can do right here to keep that 1-for-1 going, because Avenger's going to be able to swing no matter what you drop on the board. Yeah, like ECL Steadfast into Reinforcement Walker, I guess, is possible. And maybe that's what we're seeing, just to sort of try to bait something out from Lev, but it doesn't feel like a good play.
yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, Relentless here doesn't really stop what Lev is trying to put down, and Avenger is able to take care of any single one unit. So I think Devastator is a force play from Thork, um, just to just to kill off that Avenger. It's such a high impact card.
Yeah, I mean, you see them hovering over the Relentless, and that comes down and dies immediately to the boat. So yeah, you got to use Devastator here, but I think we're likely to see kind of an instant snap uh, for Devastator on the side of Lev.
Yeah, I think we just see a Emperor's Legion here, and then he gets it back
Oh,
into hand.
brutal.
It's
Oh
nasty.
no. And then just right back in the draft, he's counting him out. Just, oh, that is disaster for Thork.
Yeah, and he's got to put down that Viper probe, but Reinforcement Walker is still up, so Reinforcement Walker can kill the Viper probe and then go right into an Avenger again to clear off that Devastator.
I
Uh,
mean, there's so many options for
wow.
Lev, right? You have Power of the Dark Side there.
Yeah.
Uh, there's just a lot of things. You could go greedy with something like Vader just to play the ground, but Lev has so many good choices, and I think that the safest play is, yeah, knocking that Viper probe down and then setting this Avenger up again. I mean, what else are you gonna do into this? Like, that's a brutal play.
Yeah, absolutely nasty. And we've seen Thork's one and only Super Laser Blast. Thork conceding here, no answers to Lev's
Yeah, gotta
incredible
call it
board
after
state.
that.
Yeah, that was such a
Wow.
tilting play, but I mean, fantastic plays to these guys, not really knocking it out of the
Yeah.
park.
Yeah, really, really cool series here. Seeing the mirror from kind of two different perspectives, and I think Thorpe played it really well. Uh, we did see the top end come into play, especially Avenger. I think that card is so strong. It's such a must have for control matchups, but also played into this little bit faster paced Krennic as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
We also got to see the real use of that Emperor's Legion card. We were both kind of curious about the inclusion there, but how many times did we see something really big fall to removal and then come right back to hand? And that sealed that game for Lev. I think Lev was in a winning position throughout. Might have taken a few more turns, but uh, with Emperor's Legion on that Avenger, Lev just needed that one, and that was a snap concede.
Absolutely, yeah. If- yeah, way more high impact than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, like you mentioned, just a card that it's super low cost, so you can fit it in after a big play. So if you drop like an Avenger, you can, and then your opponent instantly clears it. You can instantly get it back if you're at 11 plus resources, which of course all these games are running super long like that. So
Right,
having just that extra little bit of gas to, especially when you're talking about vigilance and those kind of cards that can mill you, um, anything that can pull stuff out of the graveyard to give you more plays is just going to be a little bit of that advantage that you need. And we saw in this game at least 3 times, I think, between all the individual games, something impactful like a reinforcement walker or an Avenger come right back to hand. And suddenly, yeah, a whole bunch of plays that you thought were removed are now back in the scope of the game. So, yeah, really, really good card, actually.
yeah, yeah. We're going to see its value, especially in that mirror where your Avengers are going kind of one for one. Your Devastators are targeting each other, and to have like two resource on the field the turn before or turn after rather, when the response comes down, you're always happy to get that back to hand and sacrifice just like a drop of tempo for what ends up being like a huge value play.
Yeah, yeah, right on. All right, Dormancy. Well, I appreciate you joining me today.
Yeah, thank you
Definitely,
for having me. It's a lot of
yeah,
fun. See if I can sneak on another one of these in my time zone. I got to watch the sunrise, got to watch a little bit of the Krennic mirror. Everything's coming together today. So
yeah,
yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on.
absolutely, man. Well, appreciate all you joining us, and hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, Saturday. So enjoy yourself. Peace.
All right.